I want to cover 3 common traps that I see from carbon removal founders. So, last 8 months, I've gotten to work with dozens of teams through the Airminers Launchpad Accelerator, teams in Airminers Slack, and I've noticed a couple things that pop up where founders get stuck. So I'm going to talk about those. This is along the lines of an update I did a while back that was on 4 common traps for carbon innovators. But innovators was kind of like people new to carbon removal, people thinking about finding a job or kind of learning about the topic. And this one's more specific for founders of carbon removal startups. So the 3 are the value trap, the vertical integration trap, and the look the other way trap. And the preface is, none of these are actually bad. Like, none of these by themselves are like the thing you shouldn't do or something like that. But they're just areas to put some attention to and question, are we really have this one, figured out. So the first one is the value trap. And this one I've talked about before, but it's the sense of what is the value of what you're creating? Is it that you're making a product out of carbon? Is it that you're removing carbon from the sky? Or is it some hybrid? And the place I see people get trapped most is in the hybrid. Kind of, we do a little bit of this, and we do a little bit of that. Again, not that that's bad. Some companies can definitely do we make products out of carbon that are valuable. We also remove carbon. Just really dig into, is that really the value of what you're doing? Some companies on the edges they're kind of better at owning it, right? If you think about a company like 12 or a company like Mars Materials, they make better stuff out of carbon dioxide gas. That's hard to beat, and even without carbon credits, it still makes sense as a business. On the other end, you've got a company that's taking seaweed and working on burying it in the ocean, or a company that's growing trees and burying them underground, or something like that, where it's like nobody's going to pay for the product. What you're doing is you're removing carbon from the sky, though, and that's valuable. And so on either end, this is less of a trap. But in that middle point where you're trying to do a little bit of both or something like that, again, it can work. Just be really sure that where the value comes from. So that's the value trap. Next trap, the vertical integration trap. Similar to the value trap, but the vertical integration trap is trying to do too many pieces in the carbon removal value chain. The reason that people end up in this trap is because this is an emerging industry. This is there's still so many pieces of infrastructure that are not figured out. So I get why teams fall into this trap. It's because it's maybe there's nobody else in the world who does the pieces that you're doing. But with a changing industry, you don't have to do all the pieces necessarily. So if you think, rewind the industry 5 years, a company like Climeworks or Carbon Engineering, right? They are grabbing onto molecules of carbon. They're figuring out how to store it. They're figuring out how to turn to products. They're making a carbon marketplace. They're selling carbon credits. That is the ultimate vertical integration. Fast forward to today, 2022, you don't need to do all that stuff to start a company anymore. If you're capturing carbon, there is marketplaces where you can list your stuff. If you're storing carbon, there's companies capturing it that you can buy from or get carbon from them. I think this is going to continue to be a trap. It's just going to change in its nature, right? So potentially at some point, maybe everybody that's doing storage, maybe that's a whole vertical in itself, and there's actually kind of subsections that can be specialized in. But a common iteration I see recently is kind of around the around carbon storage. It gets mixed in with measurement and verification, right? And I think that if you're a company doing storage and you're hey, we're going to get really good at storing carbon, we're also going to get really good at measuring and verifying it over the next couple decades. Just always poke at whether you really think you want to get good at both of those, or if you can get good at both of those, or which is the one that you really want to get good at, and which is the one that you're kind of doing to flesh out the business model or to make things add up. Because when Climeworks started, they were really good at building direct air capture machines, but there were no buyers, or buyers weren't easy to access. So they had to build this whole vertical stack just to close the loop on their business model. But again, you don't have to do all that anymore. So just knowing how vertically integrated you're trying to be, and knowing even if you add in some extra steps, knowing which are the ones that you really do want to get good at, which are the ones that you kind of are just doing to close the business model loop. So that was the vertical integration trap. So the last trap is the look the other way trap. This one strikes pretty early. It's about basically, is your solution actually carbon negative? Are you actually removing carbon through your process? This is mostly a trap for companies that are getting their hands on carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere or emissions or something like that, because it really is digging in technically to what you're planning to build and asking this really hard question: are we totally sure that this is overall going to remove carbon from the sky? It's a tough question. It's a scary question, because if you get the answer you don't like, it means you have to do something different. But the reason that people work on carbon removal is because they do want to work on pulling carbon from the sky. We had one launchpad company that did this. They dug into their tech, turned out it wasn't carbon negative, and they couldn't find a way to make the process carbon negative. So ultimately they scrapped it and went off to work on find some other solution that was carbon negative. But yeah, this is a trap because I think in some way it's a trap because getting the answer is kind of hard. It's technical. It's technically challenging to figure out, is our solution actually carbon negative? But you don't have to go alone. There's people like Grant Faber and Airminers, people that are thinking about life cycle assessment, people are thinking about techno-economic assessment. As a founder, as somebody with an idea, you don't have to figure that all out on your own. Maybe you could say for the vertical integration trap, for the value trap, maybe that's just kind of some good business thinking about kind of where you fit in. But with the techno-economic assessment, it's pretty technical, and I can see why people get stuck there. It's one, it's very high stakes. Like if you don't get the answer that it is carbon negative, it's kind of a deal killer. Maybe means you have to start over or start a different company, and it's also technically hard to get there. So for both those reasons, it kind of ends up being a place where people just sort of say, oh yeah, I'm going to work on all this other stuff that needs to happen, but I'm not going to actually get down to, is this the real deal? So that's the turn the other way trap. Ask about that on Airminers and get help with it. Those are three common traps I see from founders. These traps are going to continue to change over time, but those are the ones right now. And I'm curious, have you seen or have you overcome the value trap? Have you overcome the vertical integration trap? Have you overcome the look the other way trap? And I'd love to hear your story. Maybe we can have you on a Zoom call and share your story too. So let me know if you've figured out one of these traps or seen one of these traps and overcome it.